Hello and welcome to this very first session on filmmaking, the basics. This first session is going to look at the very basics of filmmaking, how we put our shots together, how we compose images, and how we put those filmmaking techniques all together to tell a story. Filmmaking today is more accessible than ever. You might have a camera phone with a built-in video function, it might be a tablet, it might be a stills camera or a video camera, whatever you've got that you can get your hands on, you can use that to make your movie and tell your story. By the end of this session, you'll have learned a little bit more about filmmaking shot sizes and framing, why we choose certain shots to help tell our story, and lastly a little bit about camera movement and why we move the camera in a certain way. Then we'll have a little test exercise to put those theories into practice. There are many different ways that you can choose to film your scene, and it's up to you as the filmmaker to decide what shots you want to use and how you want to structure those shots to tell the story. Let's check out an example. Here's a short video I made a few years ago, and it uses a lot of different shots to help tell the story in a sequence. It's about 1 minute long, but hopefully gives you an idea of the different kinds of shots and where we put the camera to help tell the story. Let's have a watch.
Sorry, we've got a blocked street. Nobody's going anywhere till we can shift it.
Now that you've had a chance to watch the clip, I'm going to go back through it and show you some of the shots that you can use yourself as a filmmaker. It's important to remember that these are just the basics. There may be variations and different shot types that you might use in the future, but for now, these ones should get you started when thinking about your own filmmaking practice. So first off, we have what we'd call an establishing shot. Now, the film that we've just watched here does have an establishing shot of sorts, but for this session we might want to go even wider to demonstrate a true established show. So here we go. This is the shot here, and it's showing the viewer the location clearly and from a distance. It sets the scene. We can even go wider than that with what we'd call an extreme wide, and it kind of shows the character small in the location. Now for this we can go from the example I'm showing to even wider, right in the distance with someone very, very tiny. How extreme your wide is will depend on the location that you've got. Next up is the wide shot as seen here, which was the shot from the start of the film. So the character's in the shot, but we see more of the background than the actor. It gives you a sense of the scene and what's going on, and in some ways it's similar to the establishing shot we talked about earlier. So you can have your wide be your establishing shot. So there's a little bit of crossover here between the shots depending on what you want to do. The next is a full shot, so the head's touching the top of the screen and the feet touching the bottom. It's a little bit tighter, so again what I've done is I've cropped into my establisher wide and just taken it from the head and shoulders. You can do something similar, or you could deliberately frame it as a full shot. It's a good way of getting the full sense of the character in your film. Now we're moving a little closer. This is our medium wide shot, and it's framed roughly from the knees upwards. In this scene I've actually used a camera movement in this shot to change the frame size, but we'll get to that a little bit later about camera movements. For now, look at the difference between this new shot and what we had before. This is a medium shot and it's framed from the waist upwards. Think of medium as a middle, so it's the middle of the body up to the head. Now we're getting closer. This is our medium close-up and it's framed roughly from the chest upwards with a focus on the face of our character. After this we're into a close-up. The close shot of the face is used so that we can properly see the facial expression and the emotion of the character. And lastly, we can go to an extreme close-up, which is often used for eyes or objects of importance, so it helps the viewer get really engaged and we use it to highlight things for them. Now, when you're thinking about choosing your different shot types, it's important to consider why. Have a think about why you might use a close-up in a certain place. Why might you use a wide shot? Imagine we're in a scary movie. It's set in an old rusty house with windows broken and the doors are hanging off. We want the audience to get involved and to know where they are. So we might use an establishing shot to tell them where the film is happening. It gives a great overview of what your film is going to feel like and the place. So that would be our establisher. Next, we want to show something important. Let's imagine a detective finding a clue on the floor or someone's mobile phone ringing mysteriously. Right about now, we want to be extremely close so that the viewer knows what's important. It helps them to start asking questions like, who is ringing? What do they want? And combine that with some spooky music and you're on your way. Lastly, I want to talk about the close-up. One of the things I see a lot with filmmakers starting out is a fear of filming close-ups. They'll record the action from start to finish in a big wide shot, maybe put the camera on a tripod, set it right back, and then just run the whole scene from start to finish in front of the camera. So we don't see any faces or any expressions or any detail. You can take the camera in closer and film the character. We'll see their emotion, we'll see them speaking or anything else you want them to act out. It puts the viewer with them. When you start thinking in this way as a storyteller, your skills as a filmmaker are going to improve dramatically. The next time you watch a TV show or a movie, pay a little closer attention to the techniques that have been used and some of the shot sizes that we've been talking about. Can you spot them? And if so, have a think about why they've been used by the filmmaker. Next, I want to talk a little bit about moving the camera. Now, depending on your equipment, you might not be able to do all of these techniques, but it's useful to know them anyway because it can help improve your practice later on. Some of these movements you'd still be able to do just by simply holding the camera by hand and moving from left to right or in the same motions that I'm about to talk to you about now. The first shot I want to talk to you about is a pan. This is one of the most basic, commonly used filmmaking movements. To create a simple pan motion, you'd keep the camera in the same position and then just operate it by moving it from one side to the other without moving the camera itself, but just changing the focus from left to right or from right back to center. Here's a look at a quick shot here of a pan, so it shows you how that motion moves. So moving the focus from one direction to the other. The next shot is a dolly. So a dolly would normally be done on a track and dolly. So you've got a camera on a tripod and then on a set of wheels with a track underneath, and you move the camera forwards and then backwards. So starting out as a filmmaker, you might not have access to this kind of equipment. That's okay. You can create your own DIY version of this shot, maybe by just taking the camera in hand and moving forwards and backwards. Or you could even get someone to push you if you were to sit on a chair with wheels, for instance, being careful, of course, at the time. But that would create a nice smooth motion to bring your camera forward and back. And that's what we call a dolly shot. So here's a really quick example of a dolly shot and how that might work. We can see the forward motion here and then the backward motion as well. It takes us closer or further away from the focus point of the shot. Next up is a tilt, which is exactly like it sounds. It's simply a case of taking the camera, tilt up, and then tilt down. So you're keeping the camera in the same position and just changing the focus to whether it's looking up at something or looking down at something. So for instance, if a character's looking at something in the sky, you might want to tilt up during the shot, or if they're going to pick up something off the ground, you could just tilt down with the camera there. Very simple, but it's a useful technique to have, and it's something that you can also do handheld with your own device. The final basic movement we're going to talk about in this video is a truck shot. So a truck is basically like a dolly shot, but instead of moving forwards and backwards, you're moving the camera from one side to the other. And it can be useful, again, like we talked about earlier with the other shots, for changing the emphasis and to show something different within the same frame. You can do this handheld, of course, with a mobile phone or with your camera, just simply doing the motion, as I've just demonstrated. Or if you're lucky enough to have access to a track and dolly, of course, use this. That just about covers the basics of filmmaking for this video. Now it's your turn. Using the techniques we've talked about and the shot sizes and framing and movements, I want you to go out and create your own film. It doesn't have to tell a complete story, but see if you can practice using all of the shots we've talked about to help communicate something. It could be a very, very quick scene. It could be a very, very quick sequence or an action. Have a go and see what you come out with. You can do loads of wider watching and wider reading, so check out YouTube tutorials, watch other films, look what other filmmakers do, talk to people, do your research. Everything you learn and everything that you develop will help you grow as an artist and a storyteller. So get out there, make your films, and I'll see you in the next session.